So when sort of 6 years ago the film first played here, it was a completely unknown quantity. Nobody had heard of Frozen. It was complete. And now, I mean, even then, even though I think you probably knew in your heart it was going to do well, I don't think anybody could have prepared anybody for the fact it's like a $1.2 billion movie that that song has infiltrated people's head spaces.
I don't know what you're talking about. What song?
We got some new ones that not be named.
But I mean, were you blown away by the response you had first time round?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think we had set out to make a story about two sisters. We didn't know if anyone would want to see it. We loved the music, but we again didn't know if anyone would want to see it. So. In a weird way, though, it was a lot of freedom in that, a lot of risk taking, and then the reaction from the world continues to overwhelm us. We have the opposite obstacles this time of expectations that we've tried very hard to keep out of the story room to build it the same way as we did before, but we're still acclimating to the. It's incredible to see everyone here tonight and to see the response. It still overwhelms us.
And Peter, I know that when you make a film first time round, you wouldn't necessarily plan to make a sequel immediately or even within a certain time frame. But what was it that sort of struck you about those characters and the decision to kind of revisit them?
Well, first of all, I think this is our 58th animated feature for Walt Disney, and it's only our 4th time we've made a sequel. It's the first time we've made a sequel of a musical, so that was a new challenge. But this one came for the right reasons. About a year after the film came out, we were working on the short, and Chris and Jen started to see the characters animate up on the screen, and I think realized then that they missed these characters. And that just started the ball rolling and questions being asked and realizing there was more story to tell. So that was the decision really to enter into the sequel.
Mm-hmm.
And the big kind of unanswered questions after the first film were very much around Elsa's powers and the fact that Anna didn't have those powers. I mean, was that something that, did it take a long time to kind of come up with that sort of mythology about how you're going to tell that story and then this expanded kingdom that you've kind of created?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, Elsa, that was the question we got from around the world is why does Elsa have these powers? And then we've been asking that question ourselves too. There were other questions too, like where were the parents going when their ship went down? We tried to do that. And what was the other? Oh no, and they're not Tarzan's parents.
Sorry.
Sorry, that was me.
He thought that joke would be taken as a joke.
It was not a joke on the internet, so.
Nothing's a joke on the internet.
Nothing.
Can learn.
But so there were lots of questions like that. But then we just dug in, and one of the things we had, which was interesting, we had it on the first film too, is we had our ending.
Yeah, pretty
We
quickly.
certainly knew with the first one where that was going to end. This one we did too, and as you guys saw, we can talk about it here because you've seen it.
Wow.
The idea that Anna would be queen at the end was something that we found that was just so true to her character. It was so right that she would be a queen, and that Elsa, we talked about that Elsa would finally be free. It just felt right too. So we knew that from the beginning, and that was what we call our true north throughout the whole film. Of course, the story changed a lot as we tried to earn that. But yeah, so that.
And in terms of making the film and so forth, obviously one of the big things about the film is in terms of the look. I mean, every time we have a new Disney film that comes out, it's almost inevitable that I would ask the filmmakers, about the challenges of animation, because you're always pushing the boundary. It always seems to be that you're pushing the boundary. And we're here with the sort of the very rich autumnal palette and the sort of the natural landscapes that you've created. Could you tell us a little bit about the sort of, I don't know whether are they new tools that you've been able to use that have been developed over the last few years?
Well, one of the challenges for us, we wanted to be in autumn, and a big reason why is this film focuses on change and maturity, and that's what fall symbolizes. But we spend a lot of time in the forests of Finland and Norway, and we're very inspired, but we learned very quickly that those colors can be very distracting, very busy. And this is where I love what animation can do, because working with Mike Giamo, our production designer, he really created an atmosphere for each of the shots to really make sure you could focus, but you could still feel the atmosphere. That was one challenge, but of course you get into the elements. We had no tools for doing wind that was anthropomorphic. It involved animation, technical animation, which is clothing, and the effects animation, and then sound to bring Gale to life in all those layers. Then we added fire. Then we added a water horse in water. Thank you, Peter, for
Meanwhile,
saying
our
yes.
budget nor our schedule changed, but somehow.
Because Peter's amazing.
Because all of those elements are really difficult to animate, aren't they? Each one individually, let alone all of them together.
And a kudos to our crew, because none of those things we knew how to do when we started. And their favorite thing is, what are the challenges on this film? What are the things we get to do? And they work with technology, and they literally come up with software. They design it themselves to do things, to do the impossible.
And what did they tell you were the most sort of impossible things that you had to achieve in this film?
It was the wind
Water.
and the water, a water horse inside water.
How you show a horse, water
Yeah.
inside water. And sometimes it just disappears in the water, but sometimes you need to see it. So
The flood
Huge
sequence,
challenge.
the glacier, ice is very hard to render. It is, believe it or not, we had to finish the whole film and then use all of our computers and Google's computers to render the show yourself. Yeah.
And in terms of the prologue sequence, when you bring back the king and queen, and we have a bit more of their story and the story with the girls, you changed the voice cast from the first film. I wonder how the queen in the first film took it.
Well,
Yeah.
she was.
does anyone know? Okay.
She had a fit. We had to pay her off. But she
It
can't
was
sing.
very, very ugly.
So Jennifer was the voice
I
of the
was
queen in the
voice,
first film.
No. It was, they said, there's one line, do you want it? And then this one, they said, there's a song and an entire scene, and then you need to have I said, I have a voice for newspaper, so no, I think we'll recast.
And Pete, just in terms of getting the original voice cast back together again, in terms of what they brought to the roles, are they very much sort of beholden to the script and so forth, or do they get the opportunity to?
First of all, we made a pact that we wouldn't do the sequel unless we could get the entire team back together again, including Bobby and Kristen, the songwriters. But working with the cast, they know these characters so well. They love the world as much as we do and the characters as much as we do. They had their own ideas of how they wanted to evolve the characters, work very closely with Chris and Jen, really from the early stages. We had many iterations of the script, and they came in each time trusting the process, but really helping shape the direction of the characters.
And in terms of, you were just saying before about you had these research trips. You actually went to Finland and Norway, and you would like sort of take photographs and spend time in those environments.
Yeah, we also went to Iceland. Do you want to tell them about the difference we
The difference.
discovered? That was a huge discovery
Well,
on that
huge
trip.
sort of story thing that helped us a lot is that when we were there in Norway and Finland, we're walking the forest and they're gorgeous, but it feels like you're in a fairy tale. And then we realized Anna she would feel so perfect here, so comfortable. And then we get to Iceland, and it's a completely different thing, but we kept saying, Elsa fits here. And it's this mythic land of Norse legends and all of that. And nature is so powerful there. And so we just realized Elsa is a mythic character. She's one of those characters that sort of takes the weight of the world on her shoulders, sometimes has a tragic fate. And
Is
Anna,
magical.
And is magical.
Yeah, which is rare.
And where Anna is not magical, but she lives in a magical world. So you've got a fairy tale character, Anna, and a mythical character, Elsa. And we didn't even realize it, but in the first film, that's what we were doing. We had a myth and a fairy tale sort of working together. Of course, luckily, Anna gives Elsa a fairy tale ending, saves her from her mythic ending and not dying up in the ice palace. But so then, and then that's what we went with this one too. It's like just really keep hold of that, and it really helped differentiate between the two characters so that Elsa didn't stray into the fairy tale character.
And even though it's very much the sort of themes of the power of love, the power of family, and Elsa's kind of relationship with Anna, she does always still feel like that sort of outsider in a way as well, and that's that kind of that balance. I just wonder, in the same way that obviously Anna has Kristoff to sort of to fall to, did you ever consider finding a partner or somebody for Elsa?
You know, what was interesting is when we first were grounding ourselves in the next story, we kind of said we have to stop listening to the reaction of the world and kind of find her again. So I did journaling as her. Chris did drawings as if they were
little
Elsa's.
doodles in the margins.
We did that same for Anna, and then we also took Myers-Briggs tests as them and other psych tests as them, and it was really just to learn. And what was amazing is how easily the distinction came through. But one thing that came through really clearly was that Elsa was nowhere near ready for any relationship. She was still wrestling so much with, why do I have these powers, with the guilt, wanting to make it up to everyone, this need to she didn't need to be perfect, but she was still trying so hard to carry everyone's issues, to almost as if she was grateful for being accepted. But it helped us to understand where she needed to go, and that she really needed to push herself to those limits, to confront her own power within, like an artist that must embrace how they're destined to live. But it was you got to see Bruni the salamander. That scene opened up the kind of nurturer that Elsa is, that was new for us. And we started to feel the more she was in that forest, the more she was connecting with the spirits. You could see her come alive in a beautiful way that we didn't even know, but we discovered as we went. Yeah.
And in the same way as there was obviously a huge pressure on you, having had the overwhelming success of the first film, and in the same way, with the success of that song that's still in the psyche, there was a lot of pressure on the songwriting part of the film as well. And actually, there are some real showstoppers in this as well.
Yeah.
But I
I
guess
love the fact that you can't say the name of that song.
Yeah, it's the song that shall not be named.
it's the same that should never be named again. Otherwise, I will just start going into full animated song. But they rose to the occasion, didn't they?
Oh, yeah. I mean, one thing we did that really helped us differentiate ourselves from the first film was look at Frozen 2 as Act 2 of a Broadway musical. Whereas Frozen 1 would be Act 1, where you're setting things up and characters' wants and all that. But the second act, we could go deeper and more emotional. And it helped us just give us a template. And so we suddenly had this nice template for Frozen 2, very different from Frozen 1. So a lot of the songs, all the songs deal with change in one way or another. Mm-hmm. But they, again, I think they go a little deeper in each of the characters'
And it was important
journeys.
for us when Bobby and Kristen, when we spoke with them, because the anxiety of what do we do about Let It Go, is we said, don't try to do Let It Go again. Let it go be. If it's still the
Say it,
I
say
can't believe
it.
But it's let it go.
Let go.
But if it
saying Macbeth.
stays a favorite, well, bless that song. What I love about that song is it's a rebellion song. But it's very flawed in that she's rebelling while she stands alone in isolation. It's not the healthiest moment, but it's a good first step. But into the unknown and show yourself are evolutions. And so they emotionally, I love how they move her journey forward. She's now act in the world, Elsa. Don't just, you've been accepted, now participate. And those demand those of her. And so for me, what I love that Bobby and Kristen did is they didn't worry about that. They let it go be let it go. But they did what was right for Elsa, and I think, and for all the characters. So I love where they've gone, and I love that they didn't try to, from outside in, do something like it's a pop album. It's an emotional story.
I suspect that Into the Unknown may well be the unmentionable song in 6 years' time, but let's see what happens with that. I'm going to open up and see if the audience got some questions to ask you, but before I just do that, I just wanted to, obviously, one big thing that's happened in the last 6 years since you were with us is that you've now got this new incredible role as Chief Creative Officer of the studios, but you've actually had to kind of balance that with finishing off directing this. Mm-hmm. And I wonder from your point how you've managed that, and obviously from Peter and Chris's point, obviously the amount of bowing and...
They're going to be like, she's
how that's been, because obviously in some respects, I guess, you haven't been able to completely devote yourself to this in the way you would have expected to originally.
I mean, the good news is what we do as a whole studio is we rally around the film that's up next, and we're about to rally around Raya and the Last Dragon. We're already doing that. But so in many ways, we were focused. What's been great for me, though, we know how to work so efficiently. They're incredible. They carried a lot of load when I needed to do the other job as we're expanding the studio and creating new opportunities and setting the vision for the studio. They're with me doing that. It's a very collaborative environment. It's them and the other producers and directors, and we really support each other. So I think that's what makes Disney animation so strong, in my opinion, is that collaboration and support for each other's vision, support the love of the studio. Everyone there has wanted to be there since they were children, like all of us. Disney has meant something to them, and so we feel a collective ownership. So I'm not alone in the, as much as my job is to really support and make sure that the goals that we want to achieve that we're doing.
And she's also amazing at juggling everything. And I think one of the things, and it's funny that you said too, and it's so true, for the mothers out there, that Jen, being a mother, said that's probably the only reason she was able to juggle everything, because that's what mothers do.
That's what mothers do.
Yeah.
So I thank my daughter for teaching me how to handle multiple things at once.
Well, I'm going to see, first I was going to see particularly whether any children, to begin with, want to ask any questions of our guests. If anybody's got any, does anybody want to ask any questions?
No. No, actually.
Well, what I
There you go.
I mean,
Too soon, too soon.
I think we also love animation because in animation we can create a believable world, but not necessarily a realistic one, and we can transport people into this world that they believe that there really is a talking snowman and there is a woman with ice powers. And to me, there's a magic to animation that I love that medium.
Yeah, I think it's too soon for us to think about that without crying.
And actually, with that voice cast you've assembled, you couldn't. Yeah, I mean, they would be, and if it was live action, it would be those five, wouldn't
It's
it?
strangely uncanny when they dress up as the characters, especially Josh Gad.
Have we got somebody else lined up over here, or if not, to hand up?
A big part of it is how we collaborate. We have a team of storyboard artists who work with us every day, give me notes every day, sometimes dozens. And we joke that writing for animation is not for the faint of heart. But I trust these folks. And then we work with Bobby and Kristen as well, the songwriters, every day. And so there's a back and forth where we're talking about scenes. But what we do is we hand draw the film, sketch form, up to 8 times, and we show it to sometimes upwards of 100 to 200, 300 people in the studio, just animation. And we get notes from all of them as well. So we really try to make sure, for us it's about exactly what you said, that you can get lost in the woods, just to say, in the weeds, we would say, where you can lose sight of what you're building. And it just helps to say what's confusing, what are you reacting to, where have we confused everyone, and where are we going too dark here? Do you feel like you're checking out anywhere? So we do that. So we kind of do it on many layers, and we will bring in some kids at some point too, just friends and family, just to say, what are you seeing, and is it resonating with people at all ages? And we learn a lot from those. So I think we want these films to speak to everyone. We want them to be timeless, timely, risky. We don't want to rest on our laurels. We want to take big chances. It's scary to do that, but I think by the support I have from those in the studio, and sometimes hard truths and criticisms, we push it forward to the best we can do. I think it's because they didn't return when they were supposed to return, and they knew there had been storms at sea, and that was much more common back then. And being lost at sea, it's not luckily the way the world is now, but pre-technology. So I think they received a message because of that, but nobody knew where they had gone.
These characters have spent such a long time in kind of your headspaces over the years. 'Cause obviously, as well as the first film, there was a couple of short films that you made as well. I mean, are you in a way just quite looking forward to not having them, or if there was an opportunity to do another one, would you happily go down that route?
We're asked that a lot about Frozen 3.
Not as cleverly as that, surely.
So you asked it very indirectly.
It's, these films take 4 to 5 years to do, and we look at it as running a marathon or a triathlon, whatever is harder. And they take everything. And you, like you said earlier, you are with these characters 24/7, even if you get a vacation. You're still thinking about the story. You're still thinking about the characters. So we just need a vacation. And then, we didn't really start on the Frozen 2 until about a year after the first one. So, or even think about it. So we shall see. We'll see how the world reacts too.
They may not be done.
Obviously, that question comes out of the fact that people have loved the film so much. But obviously, I always think it's slightly weird as well when you've just spent 5-6 years putting this film together, and then already when you've just played it for the first time, we're already saying, "Is there another one coming?"
Well, it's very nice to hear that. I mean, because it is an overwhelming process. Like you said, we didn't know if anyone even wanted to see the first one, so it does mean a lot that people want to see this. We took them to the places we thought were right for them, and we love these characters. It's a little bittersweet. I haven't thought past that final image of Elsa. I love that final image.
Yeah.
She's so happy, and to me, that's just a lovely place to be for a while.
And back in Burbank now, the guys are beavering away on Raya, is it Raya and the Dragon?
Raya and the Last Dragon.
Raya and the Last Dragon, and that's going to be out in a year's time. And I mean, that's been sort of announced and stuff, but is there anything about that you can tell us?
I can't tell you anything. I will get fired.
Okay, we've got 1 year to wait, and then okay.
Things will start coming out soon.
Is there a
in the spring.
dragon in it?
Yeah, is there a dragon in it?
We will
Can't
see.
say.
Yeah.
Well, good luck with that. I mean, good luck. You've obviously got a big tour coming now with Frozen 2. Before we go, I just want to say a big thank you to Stu Oakley, Hannah Proudlock at Disney UK. A huge, massive thank you to Amy Ashley from Disney in the US, who always looks after us so brilliantly. But a big BFI thank you to Chris Buck, Jennifer Lee, and Peter Del Vecho. Thanks very much indeed.